Carl?
Yeah?
You know what I forgot?
What?
My binoculars. It's our second day here in Arkansas. We just brought the boat back into the spot where we hunted last night. Ted and Benjamin are getting out across the creek here. Me and Carl are gonna creep up here. It's 300 or 400 yards there into that spot about an hour before daylight right now. Running a little bit behind this morning, me and Carl. Still trying to get everything set up in the tree right at first light. And I looked up and there was a small buck coming out of this thicket in front of us here. He came right up here to maybe 25 yards. It's not as thick as I'd like, but it's encouraging that we've already seen a deer. One thing I didn't talk about yesterday that I should have, whenever we come to these new areas, we basically take a map of the public area. And the first step that we do is we cross off all the spots where we predict hunting pressure to be. On this particular area, there's several roads going right through the middle of the public with parking lots and trails down those roads. Basically, take that map, block off big red sections anywhere around those parking lots and those little walking trails directly into the timber from the parking lot. I'll draw just like a 100-yard boundary around those. I'll show you what I'm talking about on the screen right here. Basically around those parking lots and around those roads. I'm not necessarily saying that those areas aren't any good. They might be, but those are the areas where you predict people to be. Then once you block all that off, it makes deciphering a big chunk like this that's thousands and thousands of acres a little bit easier. In the first day driving around this place yesterday, we were seeing trucks and parking lots and stuff all day. And that's what those people are doing. They're parking in those parking lots, they're getting on those trails, they're walking in, and then they're cutting off those trails and setting up. That's not to say that we don't hunt real close to the road sometimes. We definitely do. But we steer clear of those areas where people park and people walk. Me and Carl found, 3 or 4 fresh rubs just right off the road yesterday. We just about went and set up in that spot today, just like 200 yards from the road. But it was probably 600 yards from a parking lot. I'm assuming it's overlooked. People are just walking right by that little thick section. Anyway, we always get that question, so I figured I would throw that out there quick while we're waiting for a deer to show up.
Instead of showing you guys all this footage from the first couple days, we figured we'd just narrate our way through it. The plan was to stage hunt this river bottom, going deeper and deeper on every sit until we got to the very back of the property. We saw a few deer on these first couple sits, but didn't really get into a lot of sign until we started finding acorns. On the third day, we walked like 2 miles to the very back of the property and finally got into some pretty good stuff.
It's about 2 o'clock. And Ben and I scouted our way back into a different spot. We were hunting probably half a mile to the south of here this morning, and we got down about 10 o'clock and started scouting around and made our way back into here about as far as you can go on this piece. Got back in here, found a couple big rubs. We decided to set up here because we pretty much can't go any further, and there's good sign here, so decided to set up for the afternoon. We got about 3.5 hours left of daylight. Another thing we were looking at is all the thick cover that's around us. Some of it's on the public and some of it's on the private, but there's a lot of thick stuff all the way around us. Cedar thickets, pine thickets, and then they got these acorns, water out that way, water back this way. So they got everything they need right here. We'll sit here this afternoon and see if anything pops out. came right out of that pine thicket that we were hoping they would. 353, that's the earliest we've seen, and the biggest buck we've seen probably. Around. The wind was blowing like this for, when we first got here, it was blowing right directly back into the woods, but it switched, and I don't know if that's north or whatever direction it is, but it's that way now. If he could come out and walk that path, he'd have been dead. Oh well. Gotta hope that they come on the right side of us, I guess. Such a cluster. Another close one. Got our wind. That's gonna do it for day number 3 in Arkansas. We had a close call tonight. Had that buck come about 20 yards, but he was downwind of us, so we ended up tearing everything down and moving over here on the other side of him. So if another one did that, walked the same path, we could be on the right side of him and get a shot. No such luck. So we're about to climb down and head back to the boat, meet up with Warb and Roy. Sounds like the plan for tomorrow is to bounce over to a different area and start hunting that. We've gone into quite a bit of this piece already and dove into a lot of these back corners and haven't had a ton of luck. But one thing Ben and I were talking about is this spot right here is where we've seen the most acorns. I mean, the whole time we've been sitting here, there's been acorns dropping non-stop. So that buck was coming right out of that pine thicket. Looked like he was gonna start feeding on acorns, so definitely something we're gonna keep in mind and be looking for these next few days. We'll see you tomorrow. Packed up camp this morning at that first spot that we've been hunting for the first 3 days. We weren't having a ton of luck and we wanted to try something different, so we packed up camp this morning, moved over here. It's about an hour away from where we were hunting earlier. This is the first spot that Ben and I just got into. We just boated up this river and popped up, and there's actually a bunch of tracks out on this sandbar. Pretty fresh rub right here. A couple other rubs all along this edge. Warb and Roy went into a different spot. They just been driving around in the car. Ben and I are in the boat, so we'll see what we can find this afternoon, scouting around. Probably do a little hunting too, so this is a good looking spot though right off the bat. We're only 50 yards from the boat right here, so pretty sweet.
December 3rd, day 4 in Arkansas. A lot of these areas down here, what I would call waterfowl hunting areas, because obviously we're in Arkansas. It's the duck capital of the world, so most of the people down here are duck hunting these public areas, which is a good thing, because I'm assuming that it's overlooked. We just ran into these fresh rubs right here. We're 200 yards from a parking lot, and there's boot tracks all over this road down here, but they're mostly duck hunters and they're going way back in those sloughs. We're gonna keep bouncing around, scouting a little bit. It's a good start though, right there. Buck put his head on that tree recently. We're just walking this like levee or this path or whatever you'd call it on dry ground, and it's so wet in here. I mean, there's obviously deer in here because I was just looking at a deer trail with fresh tracks on it. We just bumped a huge buck out. He was a freaking monster, dude. Yeah. That thing was huge. He was just bedded out in this water. I'm assuming there's an island or something out there. You can show them, Curl. Because there's boot tracks up and down this road where people have been walking all the time. He was just right there. It's so quiet walking down this thing, though.
Yeah. They definitely just saw us.
Yeah. He sees that type of thing all the time. That's not he doesn't get a whiff of us. There's a couple of knobs out there in the marsh that are raised up higher. And then there's one over there where we jumped that buck yesterday. Walking this levee, we just came up about 100 yards. There's all these trails crossing this levee. And there's two heavy ones right here behind Curl going into this corner with rubs on them. But I just got up to this one and you can see the track prints from where a deer or two walked right here this morning. I'll look out there with your binoculars and you can see it. See the mud in them? Alright, we're gonna get set up right in there somewhere. Back there in that thicker stuff. Seeing those tracks, there's like a little bit of mud in them. And mud on this trail, probably in the last day or two. Maybe less, probably last night. Right here. Got like 3 trails in here that are all about 15, 20 yards apart. It's hard to say which one a buck is going to take, but we're going to put all our chips on this one that's right next to the slough that's got the freshest tracks in it. See if they come right back down the same one, because I think they're bedded in this marsh right now. He was bedded out here yesterday, not very far from us. Yeah, look at this, girl. Same deal right here. See that rub? As you can tell, Curl's behind me in this bush. And I'm just tucked away down here in this grass and stuff. We've got a trail right here in between us and the decoys sitting out there in the marsh. There's 3 trails. There's one about 20 yards downwind of Curl, that direction. There's one right here on top of the decoy. There's one right here, which is the one with the freshest tracks on it. It's 20 yards from me. Plenty of cover in here, and we should hear those deer coming. They should be making a bunch of noise as they're moving through this water, I would think. just farting around, eating duckweed and stuff in here. They had to have been within 10 yards of you.
Oh yeah, I think it was those first three. And then there was a last one that came that looked like it had a bigger body, probably was a buck.
They didn't move till the last light.
I know.
Dang it. I'd much rather spook them with a coyote owl like that, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, because they didn't smell us. They were comfortable doing whatever they were doing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna slide out there and grab that decoy so we can get the heck out of here.
Yeah.
Dang it, man. Just came out so late.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that one?
I don't know, that's tough.
Just warm, crappy days, crappy weather days last couple days. And we had that guy running around on that side by side. We had people coming up the road right here, shooting right before dark. There was four-wheelers going around. The ducks and the deer know when to move. All the ducks pile into those holes in the last 10 minutes illegal.
Yeah.
And the deer, I mean, all of a sudden, we thought we heard a splash with about 20 minutes of light left. And we just sat there listening intently because, I mean, it's all water. We're going to hear them coming. Right there with 6-7 minutes of legal left, I could hear a deer walking across the slough from us. And then I thought I heard it grunt. So I got ready. I checked my phone real quick just to make sure it was still legal because it's overcast tonight, which is terrible. You know, if you're trying to shoot one at last light, overcast robs you of another 5-10 minutes. They came out one by one right behind the decoy. Looked like 2 does and 2 fawns. And then they circled around behind the decoy, and I could hear that other deer to the east of us walking. Sounded like it was coming closer. So I just buried my head in the grass trying to hide because those does were suspicious. Curl said that he saw a 5th deer come across right where those does were at, a bigger bodied deer. They were right next to us, so they were literally within probably 20 feet of Curl. And I looked over at you and you just had your head buried in the in the grass. So we were getting smoked by mosquitoes. And
yeah,
I mean,
last light.
Yeah, it was after legal at that time, and we got these deer walking around in this marsh all around us. So I just coyote howled at them, and they took off like a bat out of hell out of there. We heard them go way deep in the marsh and then stopped, probably 300-400 yards from us. And we packed up our stuff and got out of there. But I'd much rather do that than booger them. The silver lining here, Curl, is that those levees surround those marshes. And what we did today was we walked the levee, and you can see the trails coming in and out of the marsh. They're bedded on little islands out there. And obviously we had our hip waders on so we could get out there to them. And what we started doing was walking into those trails and looking for almost like mud puddles in the tracks of the trails where deer have walked in there just the last day or so. Because it takes a day or so for that, you know, silt and mud to settle back after something walks through there. And the first 4 or 5 trails we checked had piles of tracks on them, but they didn't have any little mud puddles. Then we got to that corner right there where those last 3 trails came in, and we filmed it earlier. I mean, you can see the puddles in the tracks. So we knew there was probably deer bedded back there. Now, that's the silver lining, because that gives me a lot of confidence that we can go and scout, because there's endless wetland areas down here. I mean, there's duck areas all over the place. I feel like we can scout those levees and see where a deer, you know, mid-morning went into bed, potentially. I think we just got unlucky with the weather, and those deer have been getting pressured too on the private. There's gun stands 200 yards from there. Those deer are not going to walk out there across that private field in daylight. They're going to stay in that marsh until 5-10 minutes after legal, and then they're all going to pour out of there. That's exactly what they were doing tonight. So we got to get deeper in that marsh and hopefully hit it on some better weather, which we have coming up in a couple days. Let's go see what Benjamin and Tedrick saw at camp. No, we did. What'd you guys see?
We saw, well, we bumped a shooter, set up, and saw a spike.
Felt pretty good. We were over a big marsh ground and a couple of real fresh scrapes right under us, so.
What are you rocking there?
Lasagna. Astronaut lasagna. It's good stuff. It's quick and easy. That's the main thing. Pretty soon we'll be hauling some meat out on the front of the boat, I think.
I mean, we should have a limit by Thursday, right?
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's going to be the day.
I mean, we were pretty confident after that first day in Arkansas here that we would be loaded up by at least Thursday.
As that buck came in, it was like, boy, this should be a fun trip. It has been a fun trip, just hasn't quite been successful yet.
I don't know about you guys. Every single thing we've done this year has been a grind.
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate anything less than this.
It'll turn around for us yet.
It's December, but the best comes last, isn't that how they say? Or they save the best for last.
Save the best for last, Ben.
Finish your lasagna and hit the sack.
Yep. See you in the morning.